calling from a 630 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, is this me?
This is you.
Yeah, hey, well, thank you. I'm really surprised to get on. I'm Andrew. I'm from Illinois. The first thing is I want to thank you all for what you do. It's largely because of the Majority Report I've gotten to sort of work in politics, and I've worked on several campaigns across the Midwest and West Virginia, and I really appreciate what y'all do in the media, and it's got to be hard with everything going on. So
thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, probably not as hard as working in politics in West Virginia. So thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, and really what I'm trying to call in about is I've been really disappointed with the way, all media, but even progressive media has been handling Joe Manchin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the closest I've found was something on the Hill the other day. But, I think the fundamental understanding of who he is and sorry, I don't know why I'm so nervous right now.
Don't worry about it.
But who he is and, sort of what West Virginia politics is like and all of those sorts of things. For one, when you get to work there, you start to realize that the entire party there exists more or less at this point to get him elected. The just amount of shenanigans with people up and down the ticket and to just punch left is just remarkable. And just even in petty ways. And the chair of the state party, who's currently embroiled in an issue regarding the foundation of a new minority caucus. I personally, I don't want to misquote it, but I'd recommend y'all listing or, get into that and look into it because it would be just tremendous. But the chair of the party is actually Joe Manchin's cousin, Belinda Viafor.
Wow.
And that presents a just huge conflict of interest, if you ask me. But the important thing in understanding who he is he originally ran for governor in a time when a Republican could not win that seat for love nor money. And over the past, 15 years, West Virginia actually largely, survived the realignments that happened in the actual South. Into the thousands, and it was sort of tied in with the labor movement and things like that, the Battle of Blair Mountain, things like that. A lot of that was still sort of felt there. And so it maintained a blue status. But one thing that was always very consistent about the politicians who ran there is they were all direct servants to power, because the only way you could get enough money to run in a place where that is especially challenging to reach voters is if you already had it and were paid for. So he basically just was probably always a Republican and always more sympathetic to their issues, but just he had to run that way. You can even look at Big Jim Justice, the current governor, who had to run as a Democrat, change his alignment to Democrat, run, and then change back to Republican again. So, while you can see Manchin supporting things that are maybe partisan in nature, like something that the Democratic Party apparatus would be in favor of, still when it comes to any sort of reform, it's not, he doesn't really get into it. Guns are completely a lost cause. I do know in his personal life, he is friends with a lot of, major members of unions. So that might be a way to get in with certain legislation there. I think the PRO Act may be a little far even for him, but that may be something you could get him on. But yeah, it's so I've been talking, but it's
no, it's good.
One of the realities is too is he's been looking for an out to not be a senator anymore, at least according to what I've heard from some people, and I think that's important. I think the way he goes is going to depend on whether or not Trump actually runs again.
So if Manchin does end up out of the picture, is there like someone to pick up the mantle, or is it like a free for all there on the on Democrat side?
I mean, I think that's really going to come down to how the shift within the party happens after, the transgressions of Belinda Villafor against the, progressive and minority communities out there. I really don't know who's planning on running and what things are going to look like, but one of the things there is there's just a massive sense of betrayal that especially people in the what used to be the bluest parts of the state feel to the Democratic Party. And frankly, it just infuriates me to no end that, Pennsylvania is soon going to be a red state, and Ohio is a red state, and West Virginia are a red state, because Labor was holding that together. But there are a lot of promising movements and a lot of really promising people there, and even people trying to do interesting third-party type things because of just the state that the Democratic Party is in, and it is very much a free-for-all. I really think highly of Paula Jean Swearingen and Kathy Kunkel and Stephen Smith. Some of them may present a way forward, or at least, help bring other people in. If I would personally recommend reaching any of them as guests if you were looking to talk about West Virginia or Joe Manchin further, because I was hoping a mountaineer themselves would call in, but because I don't want to speak on behalf of them, but no one was. So, hey, here I am.
Well, I appreciate the call, Andrew. I mean, it's great to have that insight in West Virginia politics, and I think at the very least on the Peacock show, we'll try to get somebody on just to. Any recommendations before I let you go? Anyone. Don't worry about it. I don't want to put you on the spot. Okay.
Yeah.
I know Paula Jean a little, so appreciate the call, Andrew. Thanks so much, man.
All right. Take care.
Bye. All right.
I'm a fan of Paula Jean for no other reason than her sharing a last name with possibly one of the greatest television characters of all time from Deadwood.
That's what I base all my politics around.
That's exactly why
Is Deadwood really that good? I've heard a lot of good things.
I was very, very late to it. I think, if I recall, it was a pandemic show for me, and we went right through all the seasons. Picked up right after that. Watched the movie that came out 10 years after the last season, and I wish I got into it earlier so I could have because a lot of people who are longtime Deadwood fans, that movie when it came out 10 years later was a really big deal because actual 10 years passing, and then you actually sort of reconnect with the characters in real life as well as in the movie. So I enjoyed it immensely without even that that weight. So I highly recommend the show. It is that good.
It's funny, actually, as you mentioned that, pandemic binging old shows that used to come on pre-prestige, HBO Showtime shows. I only ever watched one season of Deadwood when it was on the air, but I've been recently binge watching True Blood because I found season 2 box set on someone's stoop they were giving away when walking down the street, and let me tell you, I have not been enjoying it. True Blood did not age well at all. It's actually amazing to go back and see just how poorly True Blood aged.
I remember season 1 of True Blood was really good, but of course because
it was not actually. That's what I remember too. That's what I remember too. The degree to which Bill, the main hot vampire, looks kind of like dirty Paul Rudd in some of these scenes, and how bad the makeup is actually, maybe it's because I have a 4K TV, so I'm watching high def things
Guys, it was just porn for women. I mean,
Paul Rudd's an attractive man, so I don't have a problem.
I like Paul Rudd.
A dirty vampiric fan. Paul Rudd. No, but I remember I remember liking season 1 when I watched it, thinking season 2 was okay, and then after that, when I couldn't take it, that was it. I dipped out after season 2 was over. I think I watched 1 or 2 episodes of season 3, and I was like, they're introducing werewolves, so they introduced something. I can't believe shapeshifters or something. It was no, vampires fine. There was another, there was a werewolf fine, but then they went to, and then I was like, I'm out. I'm done.
Fairies was when they jumped the ship.
I actually, and when it first came out, I watched up to season 4 live. and now I've actually made it past where I was in college. And so it's it's interesting to revisit stuff that was tolerable back then. I'm like, oh wow, this is actually not very good. I'm actually kind of a Twilight apologist sometimes, because I'm like, I feel as though, it's just not for me. I'm not that audience. True Blood, I really cannot imagine the audience for it. It's actually quite offensive when you go back to watch it. It manages to like sort of have vampires to be a stand-in for like Black people, but also the gay community, but also it's constantly full of like slavery and like slave references of actual Black people. Then they burn a cross on a vampire's lawn, and it's like, whoa. That's not really.
I know who I think we could pretty much guess who True Blood is for. I mean, True Blood is for older women who would have been into Twilight if they were younger, who missed like, the social justice movements in their youth because they were like too old, and that's who it's for.
I will say though, just to kind of circle back to the caller's original comment, I think it's interesting to hear, just so before we get too far, or we've gone pretty far, it's interesting to hear from people in West Virginia, because I feel like sometimes Joe Manchin exists mostly for Democrats outside of West Virginia to point to why, we can't ever have nice things. Like he's just another person or another in a list of reasons why, practically good sounding reasons why Democrats can never get anything done. But then when you hear from people like they want change. They want to be part of like a grassroots movement to change the consensus. And so this like language of inevitability about, Joe Manchin, he's the best we can do there, that people outside of West Virginia have consigned themselves to, is just not, it's not reflected by the opinions of people that you hear from there who are like politically active.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to read a few IMs and let's get into the, my point though, Matt, was teenage Emma was very into True Blood. So.
Oh no! I mean, I was into True Blood too when it was on TV, that first and second season.
If you were in,
it definitely wasn't tailored for me though.
If you like True Blood, Emma, I would suggest getting into Supernatural. I'm a big Supernatural fan, and Supernatural.
I just was like coming of age as like a teenager, and the show was filled with naked men, and it was like a very sexual show. So I mean, I was like, whoa, this is cool. I don't really know why I like this, but anyway.
Yeah.
I'm still watching, apparently. I mean, I'm on season 5, so it's got me enraptured, or I guess the word is glamored.
I watched Supernatural like in college with somebody, and it is like, how ghost hunters are typically like 45-year-old guys with like Radio Shack equipment scaring themselves in abandoned buildings. This is like, what if hot guys with like shirts unbuttoned entirely were hunting real ghosts.
And Dean from Gilmore Girls is Sam in Supernatural.
Dean was the worst boyfriend. I have to read IMs. Hold on. Yeah, well, Team Jess. Misfit Black Girl says, Emma, either you or Sam did an interview on Peacock about psychedelics and mental health, right? Yes, that was me. You should plug it as a supplement to Matt Lex plug. Yes, we should all plug the Peacock show more, but I feel like we forget to. Yes, we do a ton of really good interviews on there. HR Data Monkey says, do you think the military could use its logistical and labor infrastructure to conduct projects in the U.S. like high-speed rail, solar farms, etc.? It seems like if we have a bloated military, a commander-in-chief could orchestrate something like that. Well, I would rather just like...
They were building the wall.
Yeah, I mean... They could do that, sure, but, that's not something Biden would ever do.
Yeah, they're working on pipelines.
Chowder with Crowder says, while Brandon is correct that True Blood has aged poorly, it has only gotten even campier and therefore better. It's not just porn for women, Emma. Let the fellas have our stories. I mean, like...
People say campy. I don't think it's campy. I think it's sleazy. I think it's very sleazy and trashy, which is a different kind of thing to be into. And that's why I guess I kept watching it. Like, but camp is a little bit different. It's not like Rocky Horror Picture Show camp. There's like a veneer of like dirt and grime over everything that kind of makes it more like sexploity than like campy. Mm-hmm. It's very like, it's very sleazy.
I was just a big fan of how Bill would say her name. Suki.
Suki. I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, because we could have a whole episode on.
I feel like there's a spin-off show in the making.